Howdy, folks. Welcome back to Viva La Cats. I am your host, Justin Hiles, accompanied by my great friend, Steve Maurer, and we are here to bring you the very best of the Bearcats every single week. We are back in our full swing of the season. Football starts in less than 14 days. We are now recording on a Wednesday. Oh, it's hard to keep track of the days, but we are closing in very quickly on football. So, very excited about that. As you can see, Steve is very excited about that. For those who are watching on video, if you're not already, make sure to check out our YouTube as well as our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any of those platforms you listen to us on. Again, we are part of the 1012 network, so make sure to check out our network overlords, Phil, and many of our other shows with the 1012 pod, as well as many others. Great group there, and always providing great content if you want to check in on the rest of the Big 12. With all that out of the way, Steve, like I said, casual mic crash right at the start.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
just
yeah,
jump in, man. Like
yeah.
we are at the point where we can finally preview Towson, and it doesn't feel like we're doing it too early. We're still a week early, but we're gonna do it this week. And I don't know, man. I think I feel really solid about where this team is going to be starting out. I think it's nice to just have that quick, likely very simple, easy, straightforward game to just buckle down, iron a few things out, get some guys out on the field, see some rotations, see a little bit of your depth chart, and kind of get the ball rolling and get everything geared up for Pitt. Not to just skip over Towson like that. You never want to do that because we have seen worse, maybe not for the Bearcats, but for some other teams. But yeah, I think this is a great place for the season to start, and looking forward to it. Steve, what are your first thoughts on not only Towson based on 2023, but where you think the Bearcats will end up after this game? How do you think they're going to perform? What do you think that scoreline is going to look like?
Yeah, so I would not be surprised if they hold a little bit back in this game, just because I mean, they should have enough talent to just go out and win this game. Towson, get Justin, if you know the mascot, shout it out while I'm talking here. They are projected. They were picked ninth in the preseason CAA football conference media poll. They're coached by Bill Shinnick, a native of their home state and home city. Justin, if you can name either of those, their state, their city, or their mascot, you just let me know and I'll check you on it. So, but I do expect them to kind of hold some stuff back just because you got Pitt, you got Miami, and you got the whole conference slate ahead of you. So, and hopefully they do not really need to do too much in this game to kind of just get out of there without any injuries. I mean, even last year, you played Eastern Kentucky and you still put up 66 with the team that we had. So I think it's just, the first game is going to be a few penalties, really trying to get things figured out. But things I want to see, Justin, number one, the pass defense, because you can, like they only gave up 14 points in the game last year, obviously, and more talent, of course. But if this pass defense is any better than they were last year, it probably will be seen game one. And I just want to see the overall defense in general. I want to see if Dante is able to play, comes out. And if he's not, that's okay. Let him sit another week. And you really, you're trying to save him for as long as you can. Obviously, like his health is the most important. I've been saying that, every time we talk about him, but just want to make sure it's prefaced again. Health is most important right now, especially blood clots. So we're just hoping he feels better and gets better, But I want to see what the defense looks like, number one, especially that pass defense. And number two, I want to see what this quarterback looks like in Brendan. We saw him with some highlights at the end of the season last year. Really want to see what what he looks like in this UC offense. And I've been talking about it this year. Like you didn't bring in two different transfer running backs to back up your 1,000-yard rusher. For nothing. Like I want to see those two guys kind of ball out. I want to see what they can do. And I really think that, like I've said in the past, you got all five returning starters on your offensive line. You've got two dudes as tight ends who you feel really good about, one returning from last year and one in Joe Royer, who is transferring from Ohio State. And then you also, You're bringing back Xavier Henderson, who you like. He was your top receiver last year, but there's still a lot of room for some of those other receivers to step up. So
Hmm.
I'm very interested in that, but I don't want to see. I want to. I mean, like maybe they get into a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. I kind of just want to see what it looks like early on, and then
Yep.
the last one for me, Justin, is red zone offense. I want to
Hmm.
see it's just I think it's just one of those things just to be cathartic. See the ball go through the net. See the ball like enter the end zone while
Yep.
we're in the red zone. Like, and again, it's Towson. We understand what this is. I'm not, I'll say this, Justin. I'm not gonna do the thing last year where I ask if we're one of the good teams in this league after we beat an FCS team when everybody else was losing. It was
Right.
funny at the time. Like, let's
Hmm.
admit, it was funny to say that at the time. And like I don't know if everybody knows our humor, so I don't think anybody really bookmarked that. But Justin, I want to ask you the Towson trivia. Did you come up with any of those answers while I was talking?
Based on their mascot, it would be the Tigers.
There you go.
Um, aside from that, what were the other ones? It was
The city and
that
the state.
city and state. Couldn't give you a state. I think it's either Virginia or Maryland or Delaware, somewhere in that little pocket. I
You had
think
the
it's
middle one,
Maryland.
Delaware. Sorry.
It's Delaware.
Maryland. My bad.
Oh,
Maryland. I'm sorry. Yeah.
come
I don't
on!
know
This
why
is trivia.
my Wi-Fi is being extremely slow right now, but
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. So it is Maryland though. Good job.
Okay. Gotcha. Well. Oh. Oh. Steve's lagging out. Okay. It's all good. I think he's coming back slowly. Um. Yeah, I would just say just kind of piggyback off of what you said. I think one of the most important things for me in this game is really just getting a good look at the defense. I think it's really hard, and we're taking some bias and taking some perspective from last year in our first game against Eastern Kentucky into this game as well. It is hard to put stock in the effectiveness and how solid your offense is when you're playing an FCS team. However, I do think defense is a good gauge. Like, you might play an effective or ineffective offensive team, but regardless, if your defense is up to snuff, you're going to be able to see the way they move around on the field. You're going to be able to see the way they create 3 and outs against worse teams than, maybe they will against later on, where maybe they got to grind out some drives, but eventually shut down a drive. You get to see that in defense in a way that you don't really get to an offense when, especially at the FCS level, like a lot of those teams are very offensively minded, and so it's really about scoring in a lot of those games for a lot of those teams. And I think it's just hard to put stock in offense. It'll be nice, like you said, to see the performance that we're going to get out of Brendan. Just to see the way he moves on the field, to see how the offense kind of gels, to see if he's been able to build some chemistry with those receivers. I think about this all the time still with Dez. Like when Dez was coming up through the system, when he became, especially when he got to his junior and senior year, we were talking the 2020, 2021 year. He could just throw it out on a rope like a deep ball, but he always got these guys in stride. And I think a lot of that comes to the performance of the QB to put the ball in the right place. But I think a lot of that goes back to chemistry and for your receivers to be in the right place at the right time, knowing exactly what you're going to get from your quarterback and wide receiver duo. I think that's huge. And so I'm really hopeful that Xavier Henderson and Brendan have got some time in together and have been able to figure that out. Of course, with Tyron Smith, Prater, I don't know if Prater is going to start. I would assume he probably is at this point. Guys, here's a big news flash. This kind of just caught me off guard reading this today. Evan Prater is a senior now. Like, that's
Yes.
just wild to think. Like, it feels like he's been in the picture for so long, but it also feels like we've never got to really see him. So, like, I'm hoping that he gets to kind of have a breakout year at wide receiver and really gets to, we get to see him in a lot more action. He's very capable. He showed us last year. He is very great in that position, and I think it's a good move for him. So I'm hoping we get to see some action out of him in that game as well. Um, especially considering just how much I would assume we're going to rely on Xavier and Tyron to bring in most of the load when it comes to receiving there. But
I would expect Royer and Beljan to probably get involved there too.
yes,
If we are going to run a lot more, like keep the same offense, of course, like run a lot of that outside zone, get those tight ends involved
mhm.
because that kind of opens up the deep ball too. So
I mean, and for real, that's the big thing I think we need to talk about too. Is like I feel like last year, like Mateer was pretty solid, but I think that's one of the things that might have kind of bit us in the ass a little bit. Whereas you see the thing that, and this is talking, Fickle's team, this is talking a whole different offense, whole different roster of players to Satterfield. But like last year, one of the things that we kind of abandoned that was so prevalent for us for such a long time was just really relying on the tight ends. Like we had some solid tight end play, like especially with Wiley and DeGuara. Like for those seasons that we had those guys under the belt, like we really could find a hole with those guys straight up the center and made some great plays that were really effective and got us in great position to score. And especially in the red zone too, I think your tight ends can kind of be your sneaky, go-to guys, especially when you're going to have your receivers covered. They're going to try to run those more like outside routes. If you can put your tight end in a great position to score there, I think that's huge. Again, too, I think it'll be interesting to see the effectiveness of the run game too. And just how capable we are to sort of burn some of those yards. Um, I would really, really in this situation, especially against Towson, when you're trying to gear up, I think we're going to ground and pound the shit out of Pitt. I think that's just what's going to happen. Um, it seems to be an effective sort of formula. But with that said, I would really like to see some of the passing game too, especially in this game, just when you have the ability to probably air it out and be a bit safer in this game. Um, give us some flashes. Let us see a little bit of that. But again, it's going to be hard to put some stock into that because it is an FCS team. Um, and so just for a little bit of a preview too, if we're going back now, FCS, it's hard to get all the data and information on it. But with Towson, looking back at last year, for those of you who don't know anything about Towson, like Steve said, they're from Maryland. They're Towson Tigers. Their record last year was 5-6. Not great. They had some pretty big blowout losses against some of the more difficult teams. The notable teams on their schedule from last year were they started off with Maryland, got waxed. Um, I'd say beyond that, Delaware, I think, was a pretty solid one, got waxed. Um, they played Villanova, also got destroyed in that game. And the final game that they had of their season, they beat Rhode Island 31-30. Of course, it's hard to really take stock in that because there's not really much to go on there. But like Steve said, they, were picked in an interesting position before the end of the or beginning of the season. So, we'll be curious to see exactly how up to snuff they are. But I think for the most part, this game is really just going to be about how much can the Bearcats score. Um, you know, it should be a no questions asked. This is a 28-point spread plus. Like you should just put this thing away after the first quarter. We've seen some slow starts before in the past. I don't think that's a Satterfield thing. I think that was more of a Fickle thing than anything, but kind of pun intended. But I think by the time that the first half is under the belt, like, you should be putting your secondary guys out there. You should be putting your full second and third string guys out, and it should be pretty much taken care of and get to see some of those reps and not really risk your starters. Because it doesn't matter who you're playing. Injury is always a risk. And as Steve had mentioned before the show, you can lose a guy early and you can lose him in the offseason. We've seen it before. And keeping your guys healthy, and especially in games like this where it should just be able to put it away, that's, I think, one of the most important parts. So,
yeah,
hopefully they don't risk anything by playing somebody too long for just a preview.
Yeah, for sure. And I was sorry if anybody heard the typing there. I was just looking to see if our man Scott Springer had put anything up, or just trying to like make sure I'm not missing anything. But two quick notes for you because I did not put them on the rundown. Number one, captains were announced today: Gavin Gerhardt, Luke Tandra, Dante Corleone, and Derek Canteen. Another interesting
There you
one where
go.
he comes over from Virginia Tech, gets on the media day squad, and as a captain. So pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Shout out to those guys. And also, you were talking about Pitt, Justin. Can you tell us who's coming in for that Pitt game?
Who's coming in for the Pitt game? Who's arriving in Cincinnati for that Pitt game?
Yes, sir.
Would that be Mr. Narduz himself? Is this
No,
who
no,
we're
no.
talking
You
about?
tweeted it. You were the 2008 team is
Oh,
coming in.
sorry.
Uh,
I was
well,
gonna say
yes,
the great return of Narduz to Cincinnati.
the Dews
But
dog will be in town. The
yeah,
Nard dog will be in town, but also the return of the 2008
yeah.
team, which would be pretty cool. And it is kind of funny. Like I love college football for things like that, where they just like
Mhm.
do those little tiny things just to like oh yeah, one more time we got to stick it to you. So
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of bringing those guys back. But like you said, Justin, keep the guys healthy. Maybe keep a couple plays back. Don't let too much get past, and then see how ready you are for next week.
Yeah, for sure. I think it should be lock, stock, and just move on to week 2. I mean, I really, really genuinely think that they should just be no issues in this game. But
We should probably like once the official depth chart next week comes out, we'll go over
yep.
that for sure, and then we'll think we're coming back with a game this year, folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep your eyes peeled.
Keep your eyes peeled. You keep your eyes peeled. So with those previews out of the way, again, very excited for the season to start. We've been waiting for a super long time. The fall crisp air has finally got upon us. I had to wear a hoodie inside because we did not turn our air off yet, and it is cold after our AC has been working overtime all summer long trying to keep up with this like 95-degree, 95% humidity heat. It was 75 today. Very rare, like 12 degrees under the average here in Nashville. So uh, football's coming back, baby. Fall is in the air. I don't know what it's like for you, Steve. It probably hasn't changed an inch. It's
It
probably
was
all just
cloudy today, so it
oh,
was a little bit cooler. It's
there you
been a
go.
little bit. It hasn't been 110 recently. It's only been 100.
It's
So
only been 100.
only.
Only. Well, like I said, with that said, Steve's got a little question for us here. Uh, you just want to hit us with it?
Yeah, Justin. It's pretty simple to me. I think the fun part about being a fan is it's literally short for fanatic. You can just say
Mhm.
whatever you want about your own team, and nobody really calls it on you unless you're on Twitter, and then everybody calls it on you. But anyway, the fun part about being a fan is to just believe. Think crazy things, and kind of call some things out. And I think it's time, Justin. We did our draft of the Big 12 teams last week. Check that out on our Twitter. If you haven't seen that, we're going to be updating that every week. But
Mhm.
I think it's time for us to really think about where UC could stack up. And feel free to take this however you want, but just think about this 16 team Big 12 as a whole and think to yourself, what is the most likely scenario, best case scenario, worst case scenario, however you want to take it. Where will Cincinnati finish in the Big 12 this season, Justin?
If I had to be completely realistic,
Be real,
there's
son.
there's the floor, there's the ceiling. If I had to be completely realistic, if I just had to like put my money on one number right now, I think I'd have to go 10. I think it's a little bit lower than I'd hope for. I think the way I look at it is your ceiling is probably 8, 7. 7 is probably your absolute ceiling. And again, like this is something we have to keep in mind is Cincinnati's uh I'm not going to put these words out in this way, so don't take it seriously, but Cincinnati is a dark horse based on expectations. Not dark horse to win the Big 12 or anything, but based on what their expectations are, they are a dark horse to massively outperform them. Because right now, with all the transfers and all the turnover, this team could up and just win a bunch of games. They could
Yeah.
also be flat just like they were last year. You don't know what you're going to get. And I think a lot of people are too confident in the fact that Cincinnati's not going to be good. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to slip up in big games, but I think they're probably going to find their way to win some, fuck around and find out some games that, you might not be expecting Cincinnati to come out on top. So, with that said, I think realistically, you probably end up 10, maybe 9. I think 8 is probably your ceiling. But I think the floor is probably higher than last year, but higher in the fact that we only have 16 teams instead of 14 teams now. I think your floor is probably 14. I think you're in a tight window this year. I don't think there's a lot of room for movement as far as, trying to uh, stay out of the bottom half. I think you're still going to end up there, but I think there is some legit potential for them to make some big strides this year. And like I said, maybe crack into that top 10 of the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I,
What
I
about you,
I
Steve?
like that, a little mid-table obscurity. If you're using your footy references,
It's like
to
BPL.
yes, exactly. In that BPL vein, I think the absolute ceiling, Justin, is so now in Europe. If you guys haven't been paying attention to European soccer lately, we have 3 European competitions. So two wasn't good enough. We needed to have a third one. So I think and you have to finish in seventh in the Premier League, seventh or eighth in the Premier League to get into that third tier. I think that is my ceiling as well. That 7-8 range. I like that. Because it's really a thing where um, there, there's multiple different tiebreakers. You're not playing everybody. There could be a couple teams that like really fall off. I do feel good about where this team is heading into this season. I do feel that the culture has been reestablished. I really like what they've done in that aspect. I've talked about how our defense literally cannot be worse than it was last year.
Yeah.
There's been some offseason like camp talk about maybe the DBs aren't where they want them to be, and that's fine. Like it's not great, but again, I think just from a talent standpoint, you have to be better at that. And you're better right there than you were last year. And then, like you brought in some transfers as well that I like. I think if you're optimistic about Canteen, like I think he could be a really good player for you this year and kind of be, maybe not a lockdown corner, but a better serviceable corner than you had last year. And then you've got Jared Bartlett as well. So I like some of the names you brought in on defense. And the only thing, Justin, is that the floor. I don't think we will finish last again because I think so lowly of Arizona State, Houston, and BYU that I think you're already better than 3 teams in the league. So, but the worst case scenario for me is that you finish 13th. You only get like 3 wins in the conference here, or
Yeah.
two, because I think that we should beat Houston and Arizona State. So, and if you win like 4 games this season, like I think that's not really what you want to see. In the long run, I think people would. It's funny how your perspective changes, Justin, when you enter a power conference league and you're like, man, it would be great if we went 6-6 this year, and like just
it really is.
yeah, seriously, like, and then, you talk about just changing expectations, and people have been talking about that for Big 10, SEC, Big 12 teams this year as they enter their new leagues, and like not everybody can go 10-2 or 9-3, and where we were last year, I think 6-6 would be a good step up. And we've seen this program before, obviously under different coaches, have bounce back years where they're able to really regenerate, turn things over, and I do feel that we have a good ability to do that. The problem to me is, if Dante is unable to play and your offense is really not clicking and your defense is only marginally better, that those
Right.
3 things, and then kind of like that 1 score margin, if it still goes against you and turnover luck still goes against you, I think I could see the path where we start losing some more games. But like, it basically just my whole point of being a fan right now for this team is last year was so bad. It cannot be like I cannot. It does not enter my brain. Does not compute that a year could be worse this year. So,
and then we're gonna immediately cut to like January, and Steve's just gonna be like, "Oh my god!"
do you know the meme where it's the soldier in front of like
Oh yeah,
like the war?
shielding.
That's how we're gonna show up in like end of the season. Like we both just do our. I've been seeing a meme recently, Justin, that combines the Kurt Angle video with that soldier meme, and I kind of like, oh, I might have to seek that one out. Like that one, I don't really think it could be much worse, but it's Cincinnati sports. You never know.
It is 100% Cincinnati sports. And with your point too on where this league shakes out, I think just as a last point before we move on, thinking about the entire Big 12 this season, I think like you got like Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, those three are a lock for the top 5. Like somewhere in there, they're going to be in the top 5.
Champions League teams.
Outside
Yep.
of that, huh?
Champions League teams. I
Yeah.
agree.
Outside of those 3, it really could be anybody. So, like, while I say the ceiling is probably like 8, 9, somewhere around there, like realistically, you could just shoot up the chart out of nowhere. But
The craziest one to me is that Bud Elliott from Cover 3, he has a ticket on Cincinnati to make the Big 12 championship game. And I'm like, what?
that's a long
Like,
play.
he was not very optimistic about us last year, and he feels a little bit better this year. All 4 members of that podcast went over on our 5.5 win total, which I don't like unity on a
Yeah.
show like that. It doesn't make me feel good, but
It's like game day.
yeah, exactly. So I do feel that like there's a realm of possibility that if this team like really just wows us and is really good, like the sky's the limit. But
Yep.
and that's being a fan too, you know. But I don't think it can get that high. I'll go as high as 7, but 7 is a lucky number. Never know.
We've seen the turnaround years. They've been very, very aggressive turnaround years for most of recency for Cincinnati fans. But the likelihood of that,
The scenario, by the way, just for people who are like yelling at their car radios right now, that UC would never be that good, is that like if there's one ascendant team like a Utah that goes like 8-1, and then there's like 4 or 5 teams that are all like 6-3, and we get in on the tiebreaker, basically.
exactly.
So, something like that. Which again, you know, you lost a couple 1-score games last year. If your roster is better this year, maybe there's a chance.
It's plausible.
It's
So
plausible.
you're saying there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Steve, you got some questions. You had some questions there. I have one that you got left here on the docket before we move on. You will feel not good. You'll feel bad about this football program if what happens?
You will feel bad about. I will feel bad about this program, and I want to hear your answer too to finish the sentence. But I will feel bad about this program, Justin, if it is just the same as last year. If you know, like defense is bad, offense is not able to score in the red zone. Satterfield's still like making weird post game press conferences. If it's just a replay of last year, then I'm completely off. I'm probably about 50% on right now because, you know, I want our team to do well. I want our school to do well. So, you know, and he just happens to be leading the team. So I want him to do well in Tangent. Like, I don't know if he's my favorite coach ever. I think that's fair to say. But you know, he's leading us. I want them to be successful. So I'd say that's about half in right now. If Justin, it is literally the same or worse than it was last year, I would feel really bad about the state of this program, especially because, you know, right now, like you're in year 2 of a power conference, and then this realignment shit is not done, man. Like I think it's like eventually going to keep going, no matter how many Big 12 media are going to be out there saying like, oh no, we can have 3 leagues, like power 3. And I just feel like there's still like a cutoff point somewhere coming, you know, in the next 5-10 years. And this program's got to be good for that, for us to get in that area. So like, I don't really want to go through the, like, I still have certain thoughts about who they should have hired, you know, after Fickle. And it seems like it's a certain booster. I don't know who. I'm not being coy. I don't know who the booster is, but it seems like it's a certain booster who wanted Satterfield and made it happen. So like if he turns out to be a bad hire at a bad time, like that would just make me have existential crises about, you know, about this. But what about you, Justin? Finish that sentence. You would feel bad about the state of this program if
different roster, same story. I think I feel like similarly to you. I think mine's less about the record and more about like I would feel bad about this season if we still have I would feel bad about the season if we have a sub 60 red zone efficiency. I would feel bad about this season if our special teams plays muffs more than one punt the entire season. I would feel bad about this if we can't stop a guy like Ollie Gordon and at least hold him to like 150. If we can't stuff a guy and keep the best running back in the league from sub 150 in a game, much less like 100, like there were some times last year where we got absolutely exposed on defense, absolutely exposed on offense. Like if we do not clean up those things, like I honestly, I think I would just feel bad about the season if we just do not look like a cohesive team that is at least consistent week to week. I think that's the worst part. Whereas like last year, like you expect some, like, okay, some games you might get run over a little bit. But last year, like every week was a different problem. There was consistent problems between the entire season. Over the course of the season, you had consistent problems. But from week 5 to week 6 to week 7, there was a different issue each time. That issue in week 5 came up in week 8 and week 10, but it was never the same issue in week 5 to week 6 to week 7. You fixed one thing, and at that cost, something else goes wrong. If we can just consistently be bad at one thing and good at the rest, fine. But figure it out. Like it cannot be the same thing where it's just there's always something every single week that's tripping us up. You have to look consistent. You have to be able to build momentum. You have to be able to build a run. If they can't do that, it's not about wins and losses in this. If they cannot be in every game this year, if they cannot be within 10 points in every game this year, I think I'm going to feel a little bit bad. Because this schedule, there is nobody on this schedule except for maybe Oklahoma State. Kansas State on the road is going to be tough. But between those two teams, outside of that, if you cannot stay within 10 points of every other team in this league, I think you're going to have some problems in trying to build that for the future. Like you got to keep all of these games competitive.
And in that same vein, Justin, there's been multiple outlets this year that have said that Cincinnati has the easiest schedule in the country, like easiest. And like that would make me feel like if both of our things came true, that would make me feel like dog shit about how bad we really are. Like and like I think we've been, lucky to have really good teams, lucky to have two, CFP / New Year's Six level teams over the past 5 or 6 years. And like I just think that would really hurt just me in general, just be like, oh, so we're that bad, huh? We're really not very good anymore. We're just bad. So that would I do think yeah. So like and if they don't make a bowl this year, I think the writing's on the wall for next year anyway. So
Absolutely.
like that is kind of like just a thing, but they have a really easy schedule. So I'm just very intrigued because it could either go really poorly and everything you need to know, or if it goes well and they start the season like say 4-0 or something, going to that Texas Tech game, there's a chance that like you roll it, and then like I know we were talking about November being hard, and it is, but you got 2 games at home that you could be toss-ups if you're a better team than you were last year. And I mean, Iowa State should be good again, and like going up there in November is no tall task, but it's possible that could be a flip game. I mean, like if you feel a lot better, like I mean, I'm not going to give us Kansas State. I just think like even if you're the most optimistic about this team, I think that's a certified L, brother. I mean, the only way I could see that turning around is like if the offense for them does not work out, which I can't really see happening, especially by game 11. That they'll probably have it figured out by then. But anyway, like there is really a shot for upside here, and so it's intriguing. Like our guy Jizzle James enthusiast was like, I tweeted something like, "We're only 2 weeks away from football," and I tweeted the picture of Dez doing the cup in his hand to the crowd at Notre Dame, and he was like, "I can wait for football." I'm like, okay, like I get it. Last year was tough, but new season, hopes bring it to eternal.
Yeah, I think as my final note as we move on, take this into perspective. I think this is the biggest thing that's going to hurt if it's the same. Last year, you finished out the last 10 games of your season. Of the last 10 games of your season, 7 of them, you let up 30 or more points. You got to get that dialed in. That goes on the offense. It goes on special teams. It goes on defense. It goes on everybody. But You got to stay competitive. If you're going to let up 30 points, your offense better be scoring 30 some points. Like you just got to keep it tight. You got to keep the ship going. Like you just can't hit that midseason lull where everything just falls apart. And, now the wagon wheels have just completely gone off and you just have nothing left to build on. So I think realistically, they just need to be able to stay consistent. Even if it's not winning every week, you just need to stay consistent. And so that's where we feel on that. We'll see how all that goes. But again, should have a solid start to the season. We'll see how we feel in like 4 weeks. Steve, I'm going to hit you with this real quick. So I don't know if you've had the chance yet. We actually haven't talked about this. I don't know if you've had the chance yet to play college football 25, but in a very quick overview of my review of this, fantastic. It's just great to have college football back. It's been waited on for so long, and it's so nice to be able to just sit down on the couch, click on the TV, boot up the game. Boot up the game in like 10 seconds, by the way. It's so much better than it used to be. Like you just pop right into games so fast now. Play as Cincinnati and beat whoever. Like it's just so nice to finally have that back, and it's up to speed with modern day graphics. You've got the modern day rosters. And honestly, overall, I think they did a really, really solid job with the game in the first iteration of bringing it back. I would just say too, like I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this are probably people who have played the game so far. If you haven't yet, find a friend who's got it and just sit down for 30 minutes and play a game. Like it's just fun. It's fun to have it back. Seeing Nippert up to date too is cool because, in the last game, like this was pre-renovation. So you get all that. But as far as the game goes, like Dynasty feels great. Ultimate Team is fun. A lot of those game modes I think are just, core classic game modes, but you get to sit there and recruit till like God knows what hour in the morning. Just you were way past your bedtime, but you were grinding. You're trying to get that 5-star, that 4-star recruit. If you're a bad program, it's tough, but you get there. It only takes a few seasons, Steve, but eventually you get there. My Wyoming dynasty has grown very, very quickly.
There we go.
And after my third season now, we're in the midst of our third season. I have 2 5-star recruits.
Let's go.
And I actually managed to get the number 1 overall recruit. So
damn, okay.
Yeah, I feel pretty good. However, I will say, lesson learned. Make sure your pipeline correlates very well with your state, and make sure that your state is not one of the least populous states of football on the entire planet, which is Wyoming, because it is horrible to try to recruit anybody to that place because I lose out to everybody else. So don't pick Wyoming if you're going to do it. Literally do like any other team. Do like Sam Houston. Pick another Bearcats and go do another Texas team. At least you'll be able to recruit within the state and it'll be okay. Wyoming ain't got nobody. You filter at the beginning of the season, there's like 2 players total for the entire 2 stars, and that's it. Those are your guys.
That's rough.
They're locks, but it is fun. It's a lot of fun.
Justin's got like a 2-man recruiting class.
Yeah. Dude, I will say that's one of the things that feels like it's somehow always lagging behind is like you're trying to like chase these recruits all season, even if you've got like, some guys who are like virtual locks pretty early, you get through it. But it's like, it takes until the season is over. We've processed the off season. And then my team gets up to date of like, okay, now I have like a middle of the pack, top of the conference kind of recruiting class. But the entire time you're like dead last. Cause like Kansas State in this Big 12 has like 20 recruits by like week 9. And I have like 3. Then I catch up at the end. Yeah. Like everybody else is recruiting hard, but it's a lot of fun. Like I said, for those of you who haven't played, make sure to go find somebody to go play that game.
I think I got to go take over Landed Sticks one weekend and just do it.
I legit bought a PS5 for this, folks. I bought a PS5 just so I could play this game.
I love it.
For that reason and that reason alone. But
I love it.
It's definitely worth it.
I'm jealous of you, sir.
You know what else is worth it? Spending your hard-earned dollars at Charlie Hustle. They've got some great merch. They've always had some great merch, but Steve, they just dropped some more great merch. And
Even
now
more.
we got to show the people. We have to show the people. Look at this absolute beauty. Absolute beauty. Mwah, chef's kiss.
Crisp. Oh, amazing.
Nippert Stadium, one section of their entire collection of Big 12 stadium shirts. I think it's really cool that they're releasing this as a rollout. I guess it's not just Big 12. They're rolling out some other schools. They had like Mizzou and a few other ones, but
Nah, who cares?
yeah, who cares? It's about the Big 12. This is the Big 12 stuff, right? You know, that's
That's
what we're
right.
all about. Exactly. But some really cool shirts. I think honestly, my favorite in the entire collection would have to be the Arizona State one. I think theirs is just honestly really cool, very wearable. The BYU one as well for Lavelle Edwards. It's just another chef's kiss shirt. They did a fantastic job with this collection, and I'm excited to see some pictures of it and see it get rolled out and see some more people in them. But overall, very cool shirt for the Bearcats. Very easy to wear, super solid game day kind of thing. Good for like a weekend chill kind of shirt. So if you haven't already, make sure to go pick up something from Charlie Hustle for this season. They've got plenty of great deals. There's a couple shirts that have already been marked down. And for those who are looking for some more basketball gear too for the season coming up, they do have a few basketball shirts which are marked down to about $25 right now. So make sure to go pick those up if you haven't. But with that said, use our promo code 101215. That is 101215 for 15% off of this bad boy and plenty of others. And fill up your closet. Get you some good, comfy gear for the rest of the season. Really excited to see some more of the stuff they got planned to roll out. I know they got more coming. I think they got more stadium gear that's coming too for the rest of the season. So check that out as they roll out before the beginning of the season. But again, thank you, Charlie Hustle. Some really cool product there. And if you can't already see this there, Steve's also got the other most recent release for Cincinnati, the Cincy script. He's finally got it on this week, and it looks great. Steve, you are one hell of a model.
Thank you. I mean, I'm going to be wearing this next Saturday. Whiteout, baby. I'm ready.
There you go. Yeah, I'm going to wear mine too. I'll be at home, but I'm going to wear mine. You know, that's the funniest thing. I think that I don't know how many people that listen to this podcast are out of town versus in town. I have no idea what the jurisdiction is there, but I would like to know. I'm going to ask this. I'm going to put this in a clip. I want to know, for those of you who live out of town and can't make it to every game, do you still do the game day theme at home? Because I 100% do. If it's a whiteout, I'm wearing white. If it's a red out or a blackout, I'm wearing the colors for that day. I'm not even wearing like just Cincinnati gear. I'm wearing Cincinnati gear as that color. I have to be correspondent because it feels like a good luck charm.
That's interesting. Yeah, I have actually not followed that. I have a couple game day favorites that I like, especially when it gets a little bit chilly in the season. So I maybe I should do that this year. I didn't do that last year, and we stunk. So maybe I'll change the vibes this year.
Maybe it'll help. Well, I did it all last year, and it didn't help for shit. So, with that said,
well, it's because you were doing it, not me.
Yes, maybe it could be. Maybe I should give it up. Greener pastures, Steve. Greener pastures. Basketball non-con is finally dropped. We've got all 11 games officially set. What are the vibes? What are the early vibes on this non-con schedule? Gotta know.
Yeah, I mean, we only have 2 times really, if you think about it, that we leave the friendly confines of the city of Cincinnati. You got the one game against Georgia Tech and then the Villanova game. And those are 2, dare I say, winnable games. I mean, Villanova has not really had like the greatest offseason, and they did not have the greatest season either last year. So we'll see what they look like by that time. But, representing for the Big 12 in that challenge, I feel like there's a good chance that we could like potentially pip one there. So I like that. And then, Georgia Tech is like rebounding. So that will be a tough game at their place. They did knock off Duke and a couple other teams at their place last year, but if you have a similar game to what you played against last year with them and you just beat them by like 40 again in their place, my confidence will be at an all-time high. So
yeah,
I do think though that it'll be good to get those 2 road tests against good teams early, because I mean, we saw what they looked like in their first road game last year, and that was against Howard. So just imagine like playing a good team on the road too, just to get that test. And like, even if you lose one of those games, that's still just a good test for Big 12 play and just getting that game under your belt. So, Justin, I think the two games that everyone's looking forward to, obviously Dayton and Xavier, the latter obviously being the most important. I feel okay. I feel okay. I think that's what I want to say. I feel okay about that stretch there, and especially having the shootout at Fifth Third this year. Not going to say anything this year. I've been burned by, I think, Justin, since we've had this podcast, we have not seen our Bearcats beat those guys. So
Since we brought it back.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, since
in our modern format.
We traded a CFP berth for
Yes.
losing every shootout game. So the hope is that I think it was. They can call us a football school all we want, but hey, football school's bringing the money, baby. Just talk to that university budget there, Xavier. I saw that article this week. What's up?
26 mil?
You guys y'all gonna be around as a school anymore? In next year? By that time, by December, y'all still gonna be around? So we'll see.
We don't know.
We'll see. But I do think though, Justin, that the vibes feel good, man. Like we got the Monster Factory picture. All the dudes were looking jacked with the chains on. I really like this basketball team right now. I feel like it's a really good roster. I feel like all 13 spots are stacked. Like I do think there's a lot of good depth. And it's just going to be an interesting thing to me to see who actually gets to play this year, because there's so much good talent on this roster.
I 100% agree. I mean, I think that's the most exciting part is like, this is the deepest this roster has felt probably that I can remember, honestly, like ever. Like there's not one position where I don't look at a guy behind him and it's like, if that guy's not in there, I don't feel confident that the other guy will be able to step up. You know what I mean? Like that security blanket feels really nice. If anything, I'm almost concerned that like there's not going to be enough there's too many mouths to feed, and this is just going to be that good of a roster. Of course, we'll see how it all shakes out. But on the topic of the non-con schedule, I think your first three you feel really easy. They feel like a really easy stretch, and you feel confident about. The NKU game on the road, as long as they don't black out the entire first half, I think we should be fine. Yes, we still remember when your Wi-Fi went out. NKU, figure it out. Holy hell.
Our roster blacked out that first half, dude. Like
that is true too.
Shit, like that.
I think. I still like. Again, who was in the arena for that game? Please tell us if you were in the arena for that game, because as far as I'm concerned, I think they were beating us up or something, or the refs were making some shitty calls in the first half. Nobody knows because nobody got to see it. That's besides the point.
We might have to talk to Dan and Terry about that, because like they might be the only UC people that saw that game.
That is true. That is very true. But yeah, with that said, like I think that stretch all feels very manageable. NKU should be no issue whatsoever. Sure, it could be a single digit game by the end of it, but realistically, you should take care of business in that game. It's a road game, but it really isn't. But yeah, I think the Georgia Tech and Villanova games are definitely interesting. Georgia Tech last year showed some promise throughout the middle of the year. They actually beat up some pretty good teams. And, they look good after we put a hurting on them last year too. I was there in person for that game. That was the Aziz Bandago launch game. So we got to see that one in person. But overall, like I think between those two games, like it is nice, like you said, to have the road test early, and to have a road test early against some power teams too, because that felt very missing. Not only with the Howard game, but once you eventually got over to Xavier, you still felt like they really hadn't like played up to snuff. You didn't really see a true road environment other than that Howard game, and it felt like they just weren't prepared for it by that point. So. I feel confident that we have that. And then you get to flip this around. You get the shootout at home. I almost said crosstown again. I swear I got to work it out of my system. I've been working on this for years, people. I've always called it the crosstown. It is the shootout. I don't know why I do it, but it is a sin, and I'm
You got to be you, Justin. Don't let me or anybody else sway you. You got to be you. Say crosstown all you want.
Shootout. The shootout, everybody knows it's a shootout. They didn't. Hey, when they changed the name, it was the Crosstown Classic or whatever. They didn't take the Crosstown out of it, but they sure as hell took the
You're
shootout
right.
out of it.
You're right.
It's
It's
the
a good point.
shootout.
It's a good point.
So
Yep, you're right.
with that said, I think that Xavier Dayton stretch is again that is going to be the meter for your entire season. I think with the entire Big 12 slate, we have that figured out. We don't know exactly the order of operations of that, but we know the home and away. So with all of those games, and we'll unpack that a little bit later too. Not today. We'll unpack that on a later episode once we get closer to the season. But with Xavier and Dayton, I think that really is just going to be your water test, man. Is going to be your litmus test for the entire season. It was last year, and I think that those games proved where your errors and your issues were going to be. I don't think that they showed everything in those two games last year. I think they got better, but it was still tough. And I think if you can confidently, if you could roll through all of this and you could beat those two, if you could go in to conference play 11-0, which that's a tall task. That's not an expectation. If you could do that
Yeah.
though, I think you could legitimately be playing for like the Big 12 championship this year if you can do that. That's not saying we have a super, super hard non-con or anything like that, but between Xavier, Dayton, and then your two power conference teams between Georgia Tech and Villanova on the road, if you could manage to go undefeated in that stretch, you're going to have a really, really good team just based on the roster we have, the upgrades that we've seen. Not only that, but the improvements based on last year. Like, I mean, I think the sky is the limit for this team. I think this is a legitimate team. And I think if you do that, you are guaranteeing yourself a spot in the conference or in the NCAA tournament at the end of the season, as long as you, again, hit the mark of like 9 games. I think you do most of your hard work at that point in the season. I think it really will. I think it really will come to fruition once it gets to the end of the season. But again, that Xavier and Dayton game, I think those were hinging things that killed us last year. Like those were the games that honestly kept us from getting into the tournament because they measure so much about the Big 12. But if you win the Xavier game, if you win the Dayton game, those two games last year, one of those would have been probably the flip that allows you in. Probably the Dayton game more than the Xavier game. But all things considered, that's really where it felt like we lost out. And I think we could have made up some difference. So do yourself some favors, win at least one, if not both of those games, if you can. And obviously, as we say, nothing's a given. Steve, with that said, on all of those points of non-con, is this a prove it year for Wes Miller?
I don't want to say yes, Justin, because I like everything else that he's done off the court. I think this season, off season, proved it that he's doing really well off the court, and that our NIL is really good off the court, which NIL is really good, which helps him. But I do think that he's got to win and get to the tournament. Obviously, I think you just got to do that. We have not gone since pre-COVID, so you got to do that. That's just a must. But I really think that you got to probably finish. I think you got to finish top 6 in the league this year, and I think you should probably try to get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. That's incredibly unfair because obviously we do not know what the bracket looks like at all. But I think these are just the expectations that are going to be put on him after this year because you didn't make it your last year in the American when you probably had your best chance to do it. And you didn't make it last year, even though you were that close, and you probably had a better team than what your record looked like. So I think people are just obviously, tired of the NIT. I don't think they want to do that anymore. And I agree. I don't want to either. I want to get to the NCAA tournament. So if you don't make it there, we got problems, number one. But I think as much as people like him off the court, Justin, I still think that there's not one really on court moment. Maybe the Texas Tech game last year, I will say.
You got to give him Tech.
Yeah, I'll give him Tech for sure. Yeah. But I think that, and then the BYU game for sure. Those two moments in conference last year, those showed you, okay, he's I think he has most of the fan base behind him, but I think he really needs to bring it home this year with the NCAA tournament run, with maybe cracking the top 25, playing really well in Big 12 play. Hopefully you finish top 6 or something like that. I am putting some high expectations on him, but I think he's brought that on himself, to be honest, with his, with the guys that he's brought in, with like the level of talent that he's amassed here just by recruiting and by transfer portal and by his own expectations. He knows, man, like he knows it's not good enough if you don't do those things. He knows about this program. And like, I don't think I'm saying anything out of turn where like he's not going to get fired, Justin. He's got like an extension, but I just, if you miss the NCAA tournament again this year, man, like I think everybody's off. Like, this is the year that you really got to kind of like cash in your goodwill chips and really like, do something good this year because, like, I don't really think this is the funny thing when you're inside a fan base, you're like, I don't really think we're that crazy. And then like you realize we were booing fucking Victor Locken last year, the poor guy, for not being him, like not being like the old guy we were used to. So I think we are a crazy fan base, Justin, I will say it. And I just don't want to see what this fan base comes to if we miss the tournament again. So that's pretty baseline for me. I think we have a much more talented squad. Knock on wood. Hopefully nothing happens this year. I think we'll like, and I really like the team that he's put together, but it's just, we just got to see it.
Yeah. I think you hit all the points, man. I think that was a very good summary of all that. If there's just anything that I would add, I think I would agree. This is 100%. Like I said, I have full confidence. This is a prove it year for Wes. And it has nothing to do with anything about how you feel about him personally, anything way you feel about this program or at all. It is all about what he's done up to this point. And he has finally got all of the pieces. These are all his guys. This is all of his stuff in the right place at the right time. You've got the roster. Everything about the roster says this should be it. Everything about the way that you've built this team says this should be it. The question above all else is, can you finish in the big moments? Can Wes Miller be that guy? Can he be that guy on the court who's going to coach his team into winning? A lot of it goes on players. A lot of it goes on talent. You have the talent now. Now can you assemble it all and put the pieces together and end up winning? Like that, I think, is what it is all about this year. And of course, I mean, I think the ultimate culmination of that is going to be rooted in whether or not you make the tournament. But it really is about, can you close out these tight games? Last year, they got the better of us. Like you look at the West Virginia game, you look at the Kansas game. There's a few other, like the Oklahoma game here, the Texas game. Like the Texas one, I still think is a fluke. The Baylor game, like all of those games, nobody's going to give them to you by any means. You have to go and take them. Can Wes Miller be the guy who's going to go and take those games? You have to prove that you can be the coach who can go out and do it. So,
And it doesn't get any easier this year with Arizona. With
it doesn't.
Arizona State is at least a solid program. Like in Utah and Colorado, like Colorado's good. They made the tournament last year. Utah, they'll probably get better. And man, well, they got both Madsen twins now, so they have to be better. But it's just not going to get any easier on him, and I understand that. But I don't think he wants things to be easy, Justin. Like I really think he's a guy that wants things to be hard, and that's why I'll say this for the podcast because I think this is a safe space. The week of my wedding, the tip off dinner is happening, and I was like, "Is there a way?"
Can you sneak his way in?
And then I was like, no, like you're dumb, no chance. But I don't know. And then like it said William Williams was going to be there too. I was like, damn it, because I'm going to be in town anyway that week. But anyway, yeah. I am just very excited about this season. But with that excitement comes those expectations, and I think you and I are on the same page, Justin. Like I don't think it's asking too much of him to make the tournament, but like. I still think that there's a portion of this fan base, and maybe there's a portion of every fan base that doesn't like their coach, but there's still a portion of this fan base that is not probably fully bought into Wes yet. And especially with how the end of the year collapse kind of happened, where they were in the tournament for a while and then they like lost those 2 bad games and were out. So I think he should really he should really try to unify the group this year and get us back to the big dance. Not asking too much.
Yeah, I think this is a team that should be in it, and it's not like it's not asking too much to say, okay, these are the expectations of your roster. Now just go and do it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the if you fall short of that, your roster was not the issue. It was your game plan because like
Yeah.
you've got the guys there. And that's where I think the biggest question marks are on Wes. It's all about whether or not he can be the guy in the big moments. So again, 100%, it's a prove it year for Wes. I'd be interested to see if anybody disagrees with that. If anybody feels like they could give him more times. This is not saying this is a cut year for Wes, but this is you got to hit the mark.
Even
Like
the nicest of
time.
people, Justin,
Yeah.
like yourself, even the nicest of people are because you're my friend and you're nice. Even the nicest of people are going to be like, no, like it's you got to do something this year. So I think everybody. I don't like to deal in like the most lukewarm takes, but I think that's a pretty lukewarm take, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody thinks you should get to the tournament this year, dude, or else there's going to be problems. Like
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that.
Or else you'll have to square up with Steve.
You don't want to do
Speaking
that.
of squaring up, Steve, our final point on the docket for this evening, women's soccer squared up. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out real quick before we started. Coley Sidlowski, the sister of Ali Sidlowski, who the women's soccer team unfortunately lost a few years ago, and they still wear the AS3 patch, and we play for 3 hashtag on their Twitter page. She scored the first goal of the season for the women's soccer team, which I think is very cool, man. It's like just an amazing thing for them. So, and they won that game at home at the old Gettler Stadium, as well as they went on the road and beat the Toledo Rockets to start their season off 2-0. Murray State and Toledo, maybe not the highest form of competition, but you like to see 2 wins early on the board. They will get another chance to play within the MAC schedule as they visit Central Michigan, up by your old stomping grounds, Justin, in this upcoming Sunday, August 25th. So I learned, Justin, that there's only like they only play half the season in conference, which it's kind of like interesting because a lot of these other schools they play like other sports. I mean, they play like 3/4 of their entire season in conference. In Big 12, you only get like 10 games. So
yeah,
it's kind of surprising to think that, but I do think that's kind of like the future of where college sports is going to go for the non-football and basketball and maybe even baseball sports. Is just like you just form a conference with the teams in your region, just because it's just easier, and no one should be flying cross country to play a soccer game. Like I know MLS does it, but that is like professional, and I know soccer players are whatever. We could be here all night if we were going to talk about the future of college sports, but shout out to the women's soccer team, man. Great start. I also want to shout out the volleyball team. They get their season started this weekend unofficially with a exhibition match against Wright State, and then they will start the season the weekend after that, going up to Champaign, Illinois. So we'll get you caught up on the full Bearcat sports wrap up, as most sports are still in preseason right now. And once the Bearcats football team starts, a lot of other teams start next weekend as well. So it's not just football and basketball that we cover on this show, Justin. We cover all of the sports.
The countdown to week 1, baby. It's hot. People are waiting. They've been waiting. I think it's the funniest thing every year. Like we always start, it feels like the 100-day countdown. It's like where it's like, all right, we're in it now. Now it's like we're close. We're close. We're like 10 days. We're in the single digits now after this.
I heard someone talking about an actual football matchup this weekend for this weekend with the Florida State and Georgia Tech game. And I was like, oh, it's here.
Who's going to win, Steve? The luck of the Irish.
And I'm not really a game day watcher anymore, but I'll probably have the first. It's on at 6 a.m. for me, so maybe not the first 10 minutes, but I will probably have the headgear selections on. It's tradition, Justin. You have to.
Yeah, it's the Bees versus ISIS. I mean, it's going to be perfect TV.
Florida State by 17, by the way.
17. Whew. That's going to be a beatdown.
Alternate spread, baby.
I don't know, man. Memphis screwed up when they let Mike Norvell go. They should have never let that guy walk. They should have done everything in their power to keep him.
Idiots.
I mean, Steve and I witnessed that in person. That's for another day. We're not going into that. We have optimism for this season. We're not replaying 2019 anymore. We're going to put that one in the past and leave Memphis where it rightfully belongs in the American Athletic Conference. Steve, thank you for joining me today. Folks, thank you for joining us again. We are the Viva La Cats podcast representing the Cincinnati Bearcats in the 1012 network. Make sure to check out the network at 1012 Pod. Make sure to check out every single one of those shows. Show them some love. Give them a follow. They're really some of the best content to find and keep up to date for a lot of the Big 12 teams. So make sure to follow all of those guys and show some love to their shows. Steve, for myself, for Bearcat Nation, let's just give them a good old Viva on the way out. Let's get ready for week 1, baby. It's coming. It's coming. Viva la Cats!